My son works tirelessly and earns a substantial income, while you contribute nothing and waste your days doing nothing," my mother-in-law, Mrs. Carter, declared, her voice laced with scorn. "The two of you are simply not meant to be together." She stood in the doorway, chin lifted in triumph, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Ethan and I have made a decision. We'll be living here from now on. That means you need to pack up and leave. Immediately." It had all started on what should have been an uneventful morning. My husband, Ethan, who usually stayed holed up in his study, had stepped out for a bit, leaving the apartment unusually quiet. Then the intercom buzzed, loud, persistent, grating. At first I thought it was a package delivery, but when I opened the door I was met with a far less welcome sight. Mrs. Carter stood before me, dressed impeccably as always, her lipstick a shade too bold for the time of day. She had the air of someone who had just executed a brilliant plan and couldn't wait to see it unfold. Still, there was also a flicker of surprise in her expression, as if she hadn't quite expected me to answer. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," I greeted her, keeping my voice neutral. "Is everything all right? What brings you here so early?" She clicked her tongue in irritation. "You should answer the intercom the moment it rings, making me wait. How unbelievably rude." I forced a polite smile. "Apologies, I was in the middle of work." "Work?" she repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Oh, please. What kind of work could you possibly be doing from home? Be honest, you just sit around all day, don't you?" I exhaled slowly, keeping my tone measured. "That's not true. I really am working." She waved a dismissive hand. "Spare me your excuses. You're just living the easy life while my son provides for you. But that ends today." She took a step closer, her voice dropping into a firm, almost conspiratorial tone. "Ethan and I have talked. We've decided that he and I will be living here from now on. Just the two of us. You need to leave. Immediately." Before I could even register what she was saying, she reached into her purse with a dramatic flourish, pulling out an envelope. Her lips curled into a smug smile as she slid out a stack of papers and held them out like a winning card in a high-stakes game. "Here," she said, practically shoving the documents into my hands. "Take a look at this." I took them hesitantly, my stomach twisting. One glance at the header made my breath catch. "Wait, are these divorce papers?" "Obviously," she scoffed, rolling her eyes as if I were particularly slow. "Ethan has finally come to his senses. He knows he can't keep living like this, with someone who contributes nothing. It's time to move on, sign them, and get out." I stared at the document, noting that Ethan's section was already filled out, his signature inked neatly at the bottom. The sight of it should have rattled me. Instead, a strange mixture of emotions swirled in my chest. Shock, certainly, but also something else. Amusement. She had no idea. Not a clue about the reality of this situation. Suppressing the urge to laugh at how spectacularly wrong she was, I bit the inside of my cheek and allowed the smallest smile to form. Then, without hesitation, I picked up the pen and signed. Let her think she'd won. It would make the truth all the more satisfying when it finally hit her. "My name is Clara, and I work from home as a freelance writer and editor." It wasn't always this way. Before branching out on my own, I had a stable position at a well-regarded publishing house, where I built a strong professional reputation. The job was demanding, often requiring late nights and weekend shifts, but it came with generous pay, bonuses, and royalties that allowed me to save a substantial amount over the years. When I eventually transitioned to freelancing, I knew it would be unpredictable at times, but I had built a steady stream of clients and, more importantly, the confidence that I could sustain myself comfortably. I met my husband, Ethan, back when we both worked at the publishing house. He was an aspiring writer, full of passion and conviction, chasing his dream of becoming a renowned author. I admired his dedication, his sincerity. It was impossible not to be drawn to him. Over time, admiration grew into love, and eventually we got married. In the beginning, we were each other's biggest cheerleaders. We celebrated our victories together, comforted each other during our setbacks, and shared countless late-night conversations about writing, storytelling, and our visions for the future. After our wedding, I decided to leave my corporate job and embrace freelancing full-time, hoping to create a more flexible, fulfilling life. I genuinely believed that Ethan and his family supported my career and recognized the financial contribution I made to our household. But as time went on, it became painfully clear that Ethan's parents, particularly his mother, Mrs. Carter, had no real understanding or respect for what I did. They were traditional to the core, firmly believing that a real job meant dressing up and commuting to an office every day. The idea of working from home seemed foreign to them, and freelancing, in their eyes, was just another word for unemployed. It didn't matter how much I earned, how stable my career actually was, or how hard I worked. None of it counted in their book. Ethan, meanwhile, never bothered to correct them. If anything, he encouraged their perception by constantly bragging about his own writing achievements while downplaying mine. It became a running theme. Every time we visited his parents, I was met with thinly veiled insults. "Oh, look, it's Clara," Mrs. Carter would say with a smirk. "Still pretending to work from home? What brings you here today? Need a job recommendation?" I had learned to brush off these jabs over time, but one particular day, as the passive-aggressive comments piled up, she casually remarked, "If you're so worried about money, don't be. Ethan makes more than enough to support you." At first glance, her words might have seemed condescending, implying that I was nothing more than a dependent wife. But there was just one problem. I knew exactly who Ethan was really supporting. That was the moment I lost my patience. "Maybe you should be a little more grateful to Ethan," I said coolly. "Without him, you'd be in serious trouble, wouldn't you?" Her smile faltered, if only for a moment. We both knew the truth. She and Mr. Carter had been relying on Ethan's financial support for years. Mrs. Carter had always believed that a woman's place was in the home, cooking, cleaning, and tending to her husband's every need. In her mind, my working from home was just a convenient excuse to avoid those responsibilities. She truly thought I spent my days lounging around while Ethan slaved away to provide for me. And so, the cycle continued. Misunderstandings, cultural clashes, and endless criticisms. The reality was, I was the primary breadwinner in our household. On top of that, I handled most of the housework. But I never pointed it out, because I knew it wouldn't change anything. I had tried, countless times, to explain the nature of my work to Mrs. Carter. That in today's world, freelancing offered stability and freedom, that technology allowed me to earn a solid income from anywhere. But every time she dismissed me with a scoff. "All you do is argue back," she'd snap. "You're such an unpleasant daughter-in-law. A young woman shouldn't be glued to a computer all day. It just doesn't look right." I would clench my teeth and swallow my frustration, thinking, not this again. At first, her remarks were only whispered when Ethan wasn't around, but lately she had started voicing them openly, especially during family dinners at her house. Those dinners, which were supposed to be warm gatherings, felt more like interrogation sessions where I was constantly on trial. Even when I was invited, there was never a place set for me at the table. Only Ethan's portion was prepared. The message was clear. I wasn't really welcome. And if that wasn't enough, I often caught Mrs. Carter whispering about me to other relatives, making sure I heard every word. But the worst part wasn't her treatment of me. It was Ethan's silence. He never stood up for me, never defended me. He just sat there letting his mother belittle me without so much as a word in my defense. To make matters worse, his parents had started relying on him financially more and more. It had begun with small requests, covering a bill here, buying them something there. But before I knew it, nearly $2,000 a month was going straight to them. And that money? It wasn't his. It was mine. One day, I had enough. "I want you to stop giving my earnings to your parents without even consulting me," I told Ethan, trying to keep my voice steady. He barely looked up from his phone. "You're earning money while sitting at home all day, aren't you?" "It's easy money. Why shouldn't my parents have a share?" I stared at him, stunned. "Do you seriously think I'm just sitting around all day? That I don't actually work for the money I make?" That moment shattered something inside me. I had always known his family didn't respect me, but I had believed Ethan did. I had believed he saw my hard work, understood my sacrifices, and appreciated what I contributed to our life together. But I was wrong. The man I had once admired for his passion and ambition had become someone I barely recognized. The same Ethan who used to dream of becoming a great writer now spent his days glued to video games, uninterested in anything beyond his screen. There's nothing wrong with gaming, but somewhere along the way, he had lost the fire that once burned so brightly in him. And as I watched him retreat further into his own world, I realized something. I couldn't see a future with him anymore. Every time I tried to picture the years ahead, all I saw was resentment, disappointment, a never-ending battle against his family's judgment. That's when I made my decision. It was time to leave. I began quietly searching for a new place to call my own. I didn't tell Ethan. I didn't tell anyone. Because this time, I wasn't going to wait for his support. I was done fighting for something that no longer existed. I spent weeks scouring online listings, searching for an apartment that suited a single person, a place that was quiet, safe, and would allow me to start fresh. I visited several properties, but most lacked the sense of peace I was looking for. Then finally, I found it. A modest yet cozy apartment tucked away in a calm neighborhood. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine, a space where I could finally breathe. One afternoon while Ethan, who usually spent his days gaming in his room, was out, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, there stood Mrs. Carter, her expression unreadable. Without waiting for an invitation, she strode inside and settled herself onto the living room sofa, her posture rigid with purpose. Her words were blunt. "Clara, you need to leave this place immediately." I blinked, taken aback by the suddenness of her demand. "What? What do you mean?" She let out an exaggerated sigh as if she were dealing with someone hopelessly slow. "Isn't it obvious?" she scoffed. "You're awful at managing a household, and despite Ethan's success as a well-known author, you haven't changed at all. Honestly, I don't even think you can call what you do work. How many times do I have to tell you? This is all just a big misunderstanding." Before I could get a word in, her demeanor softened, almost mockingly, and she continued, "I've decided that I'll be staying here to take care of Ethan. It's much better than wasting my time looking after that insufferable old woman." I frowned. "Are you talking about Ethan's grandmother?" Mrs. Carter waved a dismissive hand. "Yes, of course, my so-called mother-in-law. After everything I've done for her, she still nitpicks and never appreciates a thing. I'm done with her nonsense. If I live here, I can take care of Ethan myself and make sure he stays focused on his writing without any distractions. Isn't that wonderful?" With a self-satisfied smile, she reached into an envelope and pulled out a sheet of paper, placing it in front of me. "So, will you do us both a favor and leave already?" I stared at the paper in disbelief. Divorce papers. Ethan's signature was already inked neatly at the bottom. I hesitated before asking, "Ethan actually signed this?" Mrs. Carter let out a light laugh, as if she found the whole thing amusing. "Oh yes, it didn't take much convincing. I simply suggested that perhaps a divorce would be best for both of you, and he didn't even hesitate. I guess he was just as tired of you as I was." Everything happened so quickly after that. I had already packed most of my belongings in anticipation of this moment. and within days I had moved into my new apartment, finalized the divorce, and closed the chapter of my life that revolved around Ethan and his family. And to my surprise, my new life was better than I had imagined. The apartment was small, furnished only with the essentials, but that simplicity was freeing. Without the weight of constant criticism and family obligations dragging me down, I felt lighter. Mornings were peaceful. I woke up to soft sunlight filtering through the curtains, the distant chirping of birds, and the knowledge that I was finally in control of my own time. I had the luxury of easing into my day, enjoying a quiet breakfast without interruptions, and diving into my work without the looming shadow of someone else's expectations. Time flew when I was focused on writing, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of fulfillment. No one was dismissing my efforts. No one was waiting to belittle my success. It was just me, and that was enough. Then, one afternoon, as I was deep into a writing project, my phone vibrated against my desk. Ethan. I stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to answer. Against my better judgment, I picked up. His voice was panicked. "Clara, please, you have to come back." I kept my tone steady. "Why do you suddenly want me back, Ethan?" There was a brief silence before he finally admitted. "My parents found out I lied about being a popular author. And now they're panicking. They're even talking about moving in with me, expecting me to support them." His voice was laced with desperation. "I can't handle this alone, Clara. Please, come back." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. "I understand you're struggling," I said, my voice calm but firm. "But Ethan, we both made our choices the moment we signed those divorce papers. Our lives have gone separate ways. You need to deal with this on your own." His voice cracked. "But we should be together, Clara. I'm sorry, Ethan." I cut him off gently. "Ever since the divorce, I've faced challenges too, ones I had to deal with on my own. I can't be your safety net just because you're in financial trouble now." I ended the call before he could argue further. After several more desperate attempts to contact me, I blocked his number and changed my contact details. Months passed. Then one day, as I happened to pass through Ethan's old neighborhood, I was stunned to see an empty plot of land where his house once stood. Curious, I stopped to ask a local resident what had happened. "Oh, that place? A mess, I tell you. His family had so many disputes, some so bad that the police had to get involved. It was a total disaster." She shook her head. "Honestly, you must have been through a lot when you lived there. It's no surprise the whole situation fell apart." I stood there for a long moment, taking it all in. In the end, Ethan's one small lie had spiraled out of control, setting off a chain of events more dramatic than anything he had ever written. As I walked away, I made a silent vow to myself, one I intended to keep. From now on, I would live my life with honesty, without fear of speaking my mind or expressing my true feelings. No matter how difficult things got, I had learned a crucial lesson. Truth and authenticity were worth more than any pretense. And with that, I stepped forward, leaving the past exactly where it belonged, behind me.